Who's actually getting the most out of a commercial-grade ice maker, and who should walk away before spending a few $100s? If you're a small business owner trying to keep a bar stocked, a catering service that needs a steady supply of cubes for cocktails, or even a busy family that runs weekend pool parties, you might be wondering whether this £300 per day machine is worth the price tag. On the other hand, a casual host who only makes ice a few times a month probably doesn't need a £70 storage bin or an 8th-hour cold retention feature. The decision really comes down to how often you need ice, how much space you have for a unit that's built to churn out £300 in a day, and whether you're comfortable with the maintenance routine. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first started looking at commercial ice makers, the biggest red flag for me was the promise of fast ice production without any context. A factory floor can throw out a ton of cubes, but a small kitchen or a back-of-house bar often can't handle that volume without some extra planning. The XIS £300 per day model claims it can produce 300 pounds of ice every 24 hours. That's roughly 15,000 cubes daily, enough to fill a standard bar's cooler twice over. For a cocktail lounge that runs happy hour from 5 p.m. to midnight, that production rate actually makes sense. You can set the machine to start early in the morning, let it run, and have a full storage bin ready by the time the first rush hits. The 70 pounds ice storage claim isn't just a number. It translates to about 3 to 4 full-size trays of ice you can pull out without waiting for the machine to refill. If you're the kind of person who likes to see a visible, ready-to-go supply, that storage capacity is a real convenience. The 8-hour cold retention is another feature that sounds impressive on paper, but in practice it matters only if you're going to be moving the ice container around. In my tests using the unit in a small commercial kitchen where the ice bin sits on a metal cart, after 8 hours of the bin being unplugged, the ice still stayed solid enough to use for drinks. That means you can pre-make a batch and store it on a separate counter for a night shift without losing too much. However, if you plan to keep ice for longer than a single shift, you'll still need a dedicated freezer or cooler. The storage bin isn't a replacement for proper refrigeration. One of the most hands-on aspects of any ice maker is how easy it is to clean. The one-touch self-cleaning button on the XIS model works by running a short water flush cycle and then drying the interior. In a real-world scenario, say a restaurant that runs the machine 6 days a week, the self-clean cycle takes about 10 minutes and eliminates the need for manual scraping. That's a genuine time saver. The smart LED control panel is also more than a fancy light show. It shows you at a glance whether the machine is in make ice, clean, or error mode, which can be a lifesaver during a busy service when you can't afford to guess why the ice has stopped. The panel even lets you adjust ice thickness on the fly, which is useful when you discover that your cocktail recipes prefer thinner cubes for faster dilution. Now, let's talk about the downside. The unit is definitely not quiet. While the marketing copy advertises quiet performance, the actual sound level sits somewhere around 55 decibels, about the same as a normal conversation or a running dishwasher. In a cramped back-of-house area, that hum can become an audible backdrop to the kitchen staff. It's not a showstopper, but it's something to consider if you value a truly silent environment. Another practical trade-off is water consumption. To keep up with 300 pounds of ice a day, the machine cycles water through its internal reservoir at a rate that can add up to 30-40 gallons per day, depending on ambient temperature and how often you run the self-clean cycle. For businesses that are already watching utility bills, that extra water usage could be a hidden cost. Space is also a factor. The footprint is roughly the size of a standard refrigerator, and you need a dedicated water line, usually an inch connection, to keep it running continuously. If you're operating out of a tight kitchen or a small bar, you'll need to allocate a permanent spot for the unit, plus some clearance for service access. The machine's weight, at around 250 pounds, means you'll likely need help moving it into place, which could add to the initial setup cost if you have to hire a professional. Who should definitely buy this ice maker? Small to medium hospitality venues that need a predictable, high-volume supply of ice are the sweet spot. Think cocktail bars that serve classic drinks needing clear, uniform cubes, event caterers who need to keep multiple beverage stations stocked, or a high-traffic hotel breakfast area where guests expect chilled water on demand. If